Let's suppose that I'm appointed special counsel at the Department of Justice, and I go to the telecommunication companies, the phone companies. Let's single out AT&T, and I say, look, I know you're busy, but I want to see a copy of the phone records of a sitting United States senator. They're not going to just give them to me, are they?
No, Senator, of course not.
In fact, they're probably going to ask me what planet I just parachuted in from, aren't they?
Yes, Senator.
They're going to tell me to come back with a subpoena, aren't they?
Yes, Senator.
Okay. What do I have to show in that subpoena to get those phone records of a sitting? Did I mention it was a sitting United States senator? I can't remember. What do I have to show to get the phone records of a sitting United States senator?
Yes, Senator, there were actually 8 sitting United States
Yeah, I
senators,
heard that.
and you would have to have cause.
I'm sorry, what do I have to show?
You would have to have cause to get the
Good
subpoena.
cause or probable cause?
Probable cause.
Okay. Probable cause, or if it's a subpoena, deuces take them, good cause, to show what?
You would need good cause for a subpoena ducis tecum, and what you would have to show is that you believed a crime had been committed, or there was a possibility of a crime, or that could lead to other crimes. We frequently, in criminal enterprises, subpoena cell phones.
By the sitting United States senator?
Senator, they would have to have believed you were part of a criminal conspiracy, is my understanding.
Would a judge have to sign off on it? On the subpoena?
Yes, Senator. Well, for a subpoena ducis tecum, Jack Smith probably took it straight to the judge.
Now, the phone companies, particularly their general counsel, if they're worried about civil liability, even with a subpoena to get the phone records of a sitting United States senator. Did I mention it was a sitting United States senator?
Yes, Senator.
The general counsel for that phone company, let's say AT&T, they have the right to seek to quash that subpoena, don't they?
Phone companies frequently do that.
Yeah. And a smart general counsel for that phone company is going to call the sitting United States senator and say, would you like to weigh in on this? Would you like me to quash the subpoena? We're talking about invading someone's privacy here by a sitting United States senator. Could the general counsel for the phone company do that?
Well, Senator, if they believe that a crime could have been committed, they could not tip off the person who committed the crime. Again, I can't comment on details of this particular case.
I'm just asking you theoretically.
I've never seen you commit a crime, Senator Kennedy.
But let's suppose, okay, they didn't want to tip off the sitting United States senator. But the phone company and the general counsel for the phone company, or companies, if there were more than one involved, could say, you know, this is serious as an aneurysm. This is serious as 4 heart attacks and a stroke. This is a sitting United States senator. So general counsel would likely advise the CEO, well, you need to file a motion to quash. The telephone companies could have contested those subpoenas, could they not?
Hypothetically, yes. I can't talk about the facts of this particular case.
We're talking hypothetical.
Senator, subpoenas are issued all the time through phone companies working with the general counsel.
But they can file a motion to quash.
They could, yes.
Yeah.
In any case.
And if they should have filed a motion to quash, and a reasonable person would have filed a motion to quash, because this is a sitting United States senator, and they didn't file a motion to quash, they would incur civil liability, wouldn't they?
Senator, typically phone companies follow a subpoena from a United
I
States
know they
attorney.
do, but they don't have to.
They could challenge it, Senator.
Yeah. And if they don't challenge it, they better have a damn good reason. Right? Right?
Senator, I can't talk about the facts of this particular
This is just a
case.
hypothetical.
In general, hypothetically, Senator, maybe they didn't recognize any of the names of the 8 sitting United States senators.
Hypothetically.
That was a joke.
Or maybe they should have gone to Amazon and buy some testicles online. Instead of just saying, sure, I'll just show you the phone records of a sitting United States senator on the basis of an administrative subpoena. Now, do you have copies of the subpoena applications for
Yes,
these
Senator,
8
Senator, I can't discuss anything regarding
You
this
can't
case
even
with
tell me
you.
if you have copies?
I can't discuss any of this.
All right,
with
when are
I'm
you
sorry.
going to, General, when are you going to be able to discuss it?
I can't discuss whether there is or is not a pending investigation,
I understand,
Senator. This
but
was
let's
just
assume
brought to light
if
by
there is a
Director
pending
Patel.
investigation, I don't want this to get swept under the rug, okay? Because I think you're going to get pushback from all quarters. I think the telecommunication companies are going to be all over you like a bad rash because they've got liability here for just turning over these records when they knew what was going on. I think some FBI agents may have some liability here. I think a special counsel might have some liability here. If I were your special counsel and you had appointed me and I wanted to get the records of a sitting United States senator, is that something you would expect me to tell you as Attorney General of the United States?
They better have.
Yeah.
And
Do we know in this instance of the 8 sitting United States senators if they told Attorney General Garland?
Senator, I just learned about this very recently, as did Director Patel, and we cannot discuss the details. I don't know many of the details.
Well, maybe we ought to get Attorney General Garland here. Do you know if the special counsel told FBI Director Wray? Is that something? Let me put it another way. If I were your special counsel and you were the director of the FBI and I'm trying to get the phone records of a sitting United States senator, did I mention it was a sitting United States senator? Is that something that you would expect me to tell you as director of the FBI?
In general, I would believe the FBI would help execute the subpoenas.
Yeah.
To the businesses.
Okay, I want to switch to another subject in the 12 minutes that I have left, since everybody else got to go over. I've got to ask you about this, General. Secretary Howard Lutnick on October 1 gave an interview to the New York Post about Mr. Epstein. And he described Mr. Epstein as, quote, the greatest blackmailer ever, close quote. Have you reviewed that transcript of that interview?
I have not reviewed the transcript, but I saw the clip of it.
Okay. It appears that Secretary Lutnick was Mr. Epstein's next door neighbor. In fact, their townhomes shared a wall. And the reporter that was talking to Mr. Lutnick, she asked how other prominent men could have been associated with Epstein when Mr. Lutnick could immediately sense that he was a, quote, pervert. And then Secretary Lutnick said, or rather the reporter said, did they see it and ignore it? Do you remember that from the interview?
I do.
And Commerce Secretary Lutnick said, no, they participated. And then Commerce Secretary Lutnick goes on to say, quote, that's what his MO was. You know, get a massage. And what happened in that massage room, I assume, was a video. This guy was the greatest blackmailer ever, blackmailed people That's how he had money, end quote. Is that true?
Senator, as our July memo said, we did not uncover evidence. This case has gone through 3 administrations, as well as former U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta.
I know that, Pam. But have you interviewed Secretary Lutnick?
No, Senator.
Do you plan to?
If he wants to talk to the FBI or the FBI wants to talk to him, that is more than on.
Don't you think you ought to talk to him after this interview?
Senator, if Howard Lutnick wants to speak to the FBI and if Director Patel wants to speak to Howard Lutnick, absolutely.
The claim collided head-on with the position the Justice Department and the FBI had published only a few months earlier. A July memo stated that a thorough review had turned up no credible evidence of a blackmail operation and no client list. Investigators concluded that further disclosure of certain materials was neither appropriate nor warranted. Bondi returned to that memo the instant Kennedy asked whether Lutnick's statements held truth. She noted that the case had already traveled through 3 administrations and multiple United States attorneys. Kennedy interrupted with a sharp, "I know that, Pam," and refused to let the conversation rest on past findings. If you want to know whether anyone at the department had sat down with Lutnick after the podcast aired, Bondi's answer was direct: no. When Kennedy asked whether she intended to arrange such a conversation, she replied that if Lutnick wished to speak with the FBI, or if Director Patel wished to speak with him, the opportunity existed. The conditional phrasing left the initiative with either Lutnick or the FBI director rather than with the Attorney General herself. Kennedy kept the pressure visible. He pointed out that Lutnick's status as a former neighbor and a current cabinet officer placed the remarks in a category that ordinary public commentary could not reach. The senator made plain that if the executive branch declined to pursue the matter, the Senate Judiciary Committee itself might issue an invitation. The exchange exposed a clear tension. On one side stood an official memo that closed the blackmail question. On the other stood a senior official who had spoken as if the opposite were true. Bondi declined to move beyond the written record. She would not discuss whether any investigation remained open and would not confirm details that had not already been released. In the months that followed, additional documents from the Epstein files entered public view and complicated the picture further. Records showed that Lutnick's contacts with Epstein did not end after the 2005 house tour. One entry placed Lutnick, his wife, their children, and another family on Epstein's private island for a brief lunch in 2012. Other materials revealed email exchanges that continued into 2018 and touched on a shared business investment. These later interactions stood at odds with Lutnick's earlier description of a decisive break after the massage table conversation. When Lutnick eventually appeared before a House committee in a closed session, he adjusted the language he had used on the podcast. He told lawmakers he had been offering speculation rather than first-hand knowledge, and that he possessed no personal information about any blackmail scheme. He characterized the later meetings as limited and without lasting significance. The clarification arrived after the Senate hearing and after the files had already begun to circulate, so it could not erase the original public statements or the questions Kennedy had raised. Public discussion after the hearing centered on the distance between the department's formal findings and the Commerce Secretary's unscripted remarks. Some observers noted that a neighbor's vantage point might have supplied details unavailable to investigators working from documents alone. Others asked why a cabinet member would volunteer such a characterization if the department had already determined the opposite. Bondi's careful replies left the impression that the Justice Department preferred to remain anchored to the July memo rather than reopen the matter on the strength of a single interview. Kennedy's insistence that the comments alone justified a formal conversation kept the issue from fading. He treated the gap between the two accounts as a matter of institutional responsibility rather than partisan disagreement. The episode also returned attention to older questions surrounding the 2008 plea agreement. Epstein received an 18-month sentence that allowed him to leave the facility during the day and receive visitors. Lutnick had suggested that the leniency might have resulted from a trade involving recorded material. The department's memo offered no support for that theory. Bondi repeated the memo's conclusion without elaborating. The result was a public record containing both the original claim and the official rejection of it, along with the senator's documented demand that the claim receive direct examination. Later testimony and document releases continued to surface smaller details that kept the conversation alive. Email chains showed business discussions between Lutnick and Epstein years after the 2005 encounter. Photographs and visitor logs placed Lutnick on the island long after Epstein's first conviction. Each new item prompted renewed calls for clarity, yet the Justice Department maintained its earlier position. Lutnick continued to describe his overall contact as minimal. Bondi continued to point back to the completed review. Kennedy continued to treat the podcast remarks as unfinished business. What stands out years later is the simple sequence of events. A cabinet secretary spoke publicly and without apparent hesitation about a blackmail operation that the Justice Department said never existed. An attorney general declined to treat those remarks as grounds for an immediate interview. A United States senator placed both positions on the record and signaled readiness to pursue the matter through the committee if necessary. The hearing itself lasted only a portion of Kennedy's allotted time, yet the exchanges remained one of the more closely examined moments of Bondi's tenure. It captured in a few minutes the larger difficulty